Hi, I'm Cantor Rosner, and welcome to our lesson in Tikkunim. One of the first tools that the Torah reader has is the Tikkun, and it's a book that helps you prepare how to read from the Torah. Nothing new here. What's interesting, though, is that there have been a variety of different Tikkunim that have been on the market from a long time ago up until now, and then today we're going to be taking a look at all of them. As the Beatles used to say, they come in and out of style, but they're guaranteed to raise a smile. So let me introduce to you our first tikkun of the day, and that will be the tikkun korim. That is the tikkun that perhaps your grandparents used in preparing Torah. And we're going to take a look at this one right now. This tikkun is one of our first tikkunim that we use, and what happens here is you'll see that the ketav, or the written print of the Torah, is in a very traditional style. It is in an Ashkenazic style, the Beit Yosef style, but one of the curious things about this tikkun is that if you look over on this page now, you'll notice that the words on this right column and on this left column do not match up very well. For instance, the paragraph beginning Vayihiyu v'nei Yisrael b'midbar starts here, but over here it's about 2 lines lower. So if you're in the middle, as an example of this line, Vayotziu oto, it's not going to be, at least, to the left at the same spot geographically. So there's some very interesting positives and negatives when it comes to this tikkun, but we can speak about that as we go. Our next tikkun is a tikkun that I used when I was a student at JTS that I found in the Jewish bookstore immediately downstairs from our apartment, and it is called Tikkun Lakarim Hechadash. Hechadash, of course, the operative word here, being the new tikkun, and you may notice with this tikkun, I've used this now for the past 24, 25 years, and it's been around the block quite a bit, but it's been a favorite of mine as well. And what's curious about this is that the words on all the columns of the Torah actually line up very, very well. So if we bring over the camera, we'll have a look and see that that happens to be the truth. As an example, if you look at the way this column is lined out, the first word on the column is going to be where you would expect it over on the left side when you're preparing to read out of the Sefer Torah. So the El Kosmim is going to appear right there, and if you take a look at the end of the paragraph, there's only one word at the end of this paragraph, and it's the same exact word. The rest of the column is a perfect match, and it makes this much more user-friendly, at least with preparation, than the previous tikkun. And what's nice is that the same scribe work is done identically, so it uses the same Ashkenazic style. Our next tikkun that we have here is, again, a tikkun korim by Mishor. And this tikkun came out a few years later than the previous tikkun, and we will notice several interesting things about this tikkun as well. Actually, it looks like a Gemara volume, which is a very interesting thing. Even though it's not a Gemara, it is a tikkun. But what lies most interestingly is inside. One of the first things that we notice in this tikkun is that this tikkun also includes lots of laws that are found for the Torah reader, and also a listing of the letters that the Sofer Stam must master in order to write either a Sefer Torah or a mezuzah or a tefillin. And each letter comes with the instructions for the Sofer Stam. If you look at, for one moment, at the letter Chet, you will notice that the Chet is actually made up of 2 zions connected with a little bit of a crown. And you'll see that the explanation of the 2 zions are right there. This is one of the nicer tikkunim that we have because, and I'll say as well that there's not one tikkun that has everything, and often you need to use several at a time. This tikkun, as an example, uses a Sephardic, or actually a Velish type of print, which is perhaps not standard, but maintains the same lineup of the column and words that's very, very user-friendly. What's also interesting about this tikkun is that it gives all of the trope that the words that have post and pre-positive trope signs, meaning the words that must have tropes at the very, very end or beginning of the words, they will have that as well as a second trope if necessary to give the proper accent. So as an example, on the word lema'an, you will notice the doubling of the talisha kitana. This is a very, very necessary thing for the Torah reader to have because it allows him the luxury of knowing where to put the correct accent. The interesting thing about the tikkun that I mentioned before is that this feature is not found for the post-positives of zarka and segol, as well as talisha gedola and talisha kitana, only with pashta. So the first two tikkun that we have, two tikkunim, do not completely help us in that category, but the mishur tikkun does. Another very nice feature of this tikkun is the beautiful addition of a luach of years. This tikkun, as seen at the very, very end, gives you the type of year for the calendar year, and you should know that there are 14 completely different year models where certain festivals fall on certain dates, and it is important to know which calendar year we're in so we can determine the haftarot, the Torah portions for the week, and the corresponding Hebrew month and day. The next page sort of shows this information by listing the days of the week over here, and in the columns below, the dates of the month accompanied by the parshiot that we have for the week. What's also nice is that it includes as well, both for the land of Israel and for the diaspora. Often, parshiot will be different on an occasion because of the disparity of how festivals are observed, whether they are 1 or 2 days. So whereas we might celebrate a second day of a festival on Shabbat, in Israel, that Shabbat will not be a festival, what will be the next Shabbat. So you can have a discrepancy in the parshiot for Shabbat during the course of the year. The year has a fixed calendar portion to it, about half of the year, and then a non-fixed portion, which is the second half of the year. So it's kind of interesting that this tikkun has some nice luxury items that are found that haven't been found before. These two items that I mentioned before, both the laws of the scribe and the calendar, make a nice complement and a nice addition to the text of the Torah. Our final tikkun is the tikkun simanim, which is a great tikkun that we have. Again, doesn't have everything, but it has some nice pluses and additions that we can use as a Torah reader to include in our palette of techniques that we have to read from the Sefer Torah. This tikkun simanim is probably the most recent tikkun that we have on the market, and has some very, very nice pluses. So we're going to take a look at this one to conclude our session. The tikkun simanim has some very, very positive attractions here, and they are actually listed at the very, very beginning of the tikkun to show you what you're getting when you open up the pages of the tikkun itself. If you look at this column here, you'll see various examples of things that are included. First example that we have here are the inclusions that were not found in any of the previous tikkunim, where we get a kamatz katon symbol. This long kamatz, whenever you see it, you will have the instruction not to pronounce the word arlato, but orlato, because not all kamatzes are created evenly. There are also some nice additions as well, where we are including the moving shva as opposed to the resting shva. This word, avdechem, has a bold shva under the daled. It helps us to know that this shva will be moving and the previous one will not. Things get a little bit trickier, so it is good to know when these occasions occur. Another example that this tikkun has is in the practicing mode of the Torah. You will see often a large letter. Now, this large letter does not appear in the text over here in the Torah, the word Yareah, but over on the practice side, the large letter is there to tell you that you have an unusual pronunciation of that word, and that the accent of that word will actually appear earlier rather than later, hence the large letter. And these are strewn about throughout the entire tikkun in a very, very conclusive way, and it is to help you guarantee correct pronunciation of the words. So this tikkun has some very, very positive things that we can include that will help us. But again, not all the tikkunim are built evenly, and there are going to be some situations where you're going to want to practice from one and then practice from another to gain an advantage on being more accurate with our text. So I hope this little demonstration shows you that there are many different tikkunim that you have, and you have an option to use all of them in some combination of ways to help you get the maximum out of your Torah reading. Often it's good to work from a tikkun korim chadash because it has the nice traditional Ashkenazic lettering, as well as the lineup of the words in their proper places, and to use perhaps the tikkun simanim or the mishur to get a little bit more accuracy out of the words, and also to learn about the laws of safrut. So I hope you enjoyed the demonstration today, and we'll see you next time.